Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. As always, I appreciate that. Let's talk God of War for PlayStation 4. God of War is a reboot of the classic action game series featuring high production values. So let's get this out of the way. The game has a great world design with gorgeous, varied backdrops, some great music, voice acting, sound effects. It's all top notch. I don't think that this is an open world. It's not. It's a fairly linear experience, though the environments do branch out from larger areas to smaller areas, so there's enough room for exploration. I think the linearity actually helps the story, as this is a journey of father and son to scatter the ashes of the deceased mother over a distant mountain. It doesn't really break new grounds, as we've seen that adult-child dynamic before in, for example, The Last of Us, but it is nevertheless a very powerful narrative tool, although the grumpy, humorless Kratos is mostly a one-dimensional character warning the boy for all kinds of dangers. And I get it, this world is harsh, but it gets a bit boring after a while, though. Later on in the game, the relationship between Kratos and his son does develop, and there's a nice contrast between Kratos and the more curious and resourceful Atreus, the son.
We have a long journey.
Although linear, the journey is never straightforward, as there are obstacles at every turn, bosses to slay, although there are only 3 actual bosses. So that's a bit disappointing. There are hidden chests and collectibles to be found, as well as casual puzzles to be solved. For most of that stuff, I didn't really care that much because, like, the enticing looking chests mostly contain some ingredients that you can use to upgrade your stuff. So the novelty of finding a chest wears thin after a while. I mean, you'll never find a completely new armor or a completely new weapon. There are very few weapons in this game. Mostly you'll be using the axe that Kratos has, and you'll be upgrading that. But the upgrade system, I think, is overly cumbersome. I've said it before when reviewing other games. What's fun about getting out of the game and into a menu with lots of pages to navigate with tiny text to upgrade your stuff? You know, that gets me out of the game. I don't think this is very immersive to navigate menus. And as I said, you'll be mostly upgrading your axe and your armor and the boy's outfit, but in the end you'll have the same axe that you started out with. Now, a big chunk of the game is the combat, of course, and not anymore the action is seen from above, but God of War opts for a more over-the-shoulder look and view, much like Hellblade, which makes the combat feel close and personal and meaty and brutal, but also creates a new problem, namely the camera, because your view of the action is restricted to what you see in front of you, and you can't always see what's going on around you. Yes, there are indicators when an enemy is behind you, but it is less than ideal. You also get a bunch of combat moves for people who can actually remember those, but the longer you play, the more you'll probably settle for the same moves, and it does become repetitive after a while, the combat. Again, because you will be probably using the same moves over and over again, and you will try to chip away at the health bar of the enemy. The boy doesn't do much damage and serves mostly as a distraction for Kratos. Overall, I enjoyed God of War. It's a journey worth taking, mostly for the story, and you just want to know what's next. But it's far from a perfect game. So thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.